So, welcome to Extraordinary Woman. I am Gabriella Taylor, and this is a space where we together are redefining power. We are redefining having a voice and connecting to our authentic voice and reimagining what leadership is from the inside out. And today's guest is someone who is doing just that. My new friend and dear colleague and fellow sojourner of truth, Samara Bay, is the author of Permission to Speak: How to Change What Power Sounds Like, starting with you. And she is on a mission to help more women feel seen, heard, and at home in their voices. So, Samara, welcome. So delighted to have you here.
Thank you. What a gift.
What
Hello.
a gift,
Hello.
truly.
And the last time I saw you was in your own home, so I appreciate that quite a lot.
I love that. So I recently held my annual International Women's Day Salon, and Samara came up from LA to be part of that group of women, and it was really such a special day. And so I'm thrilled to be continuing the momentum here and just the connection because I feel we share in very compatible ways a very deep commitment to redefining what does it mean to be a powerful woman in the world today, and also the balancing out of feminine power in men and women, like our human qualities, our compassion, our caring, our authenticity, as a place of welcome where all people are welcome. So thank you for being here. And I want, one of the things that you say that I just feel is so succinct and so gorgeous. You say we need to change the sound of power. What was the moment for you when you realized your own voice didn't fit the old mold? And how did you reclaim it and begin to change the sound of power in you, and how that led you to do this in your work professionally?
Well, I wish I could say that the origin story of that moment I knew inside of it was an origin story, right? But I just really want to normalize for all of us that instead I was just living through something that was like low T trauma
Mhm.
and not sure how to process it. And only 20 years later, when I was coaching enough people that I started to have a more robust philosophy of my own that I was constructing, did I realize it's exactly what I had needed 20 years ago. Almost exactly 20 years ago as we speak. I had this episode in the middle of a 3-year graduate acting program where I lost my voice and I didn't have any other symptoms, so I wasn't sick. But it was so painful to speak that I stopped. And I kept going to class because you can't not go to grad school because your throat hurts, right? But I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know how to communicate with people. I quickly became somebody that no one wanted to communicate with. So I felt like a ghost. You know, when you don't expect anybody to pipe up and have an opinion, you don't look to them,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is also a metaphor, but I felt that really um personally for maybe the first time during that era, and at the same time was just having this sort of existential crisis like late at night in the dead of winter in Providence, Rhode Island, with tea in hand with honey, thinking, what is my voice trying to tell me?
Mhm.
And I got misdiagnosed as like acid reflux, and I was like, this is no, something's going on here. Thank you, big pharma. That's not what this is. And I finally got myself to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they stuck a little camera up my nose and down the back of my throat. And I got this incredible, terrifying, incredible photo of my vocal cords.
Mhm.
And for anyone listening who's had this experience, I just really want to, I see you through time and space. And it's this V of the vocal cords, and there was a blister on the same spot on both sides,
Mhm.
which is a telltale sign of vocal nodules,
Mhm.
which is all I knew. I was sent back to class. I had missed the morning session. And I walked in, and all of my classmates and the gentleman who ran the whole program were all there. I'd missed the morning session, and he stopped everything and said, "So, what's the diagnosis?" And I said, as audibly as I could, vocal nodules. I have to go on full vocal rest for a month and a half. And he said, "Ha, yeah, just as I thought. Bad usage."
Mhm.
I mean, it's
To
not a
be
phrase.
shamed,
It's
to
not a
be,
phrase that has a lot of meaning, but
yeah,
exactly. It
to
was
be
a
shamed.
container
Yes.
for shame, for
Hmm.
shame. I see that you're the victim here, but you're also the perpetrator.
Mhm, mhm,
Don't you forget it. I know.
mhm,
I really felt all of that. And although I, the timing kind of worked out, I was home over the holidays shortly after that diagnosis and found a great speech pathologist and really did learn how to speak again and, re-enter the land of the living.
mhm,
The processing of his comment took so much longer.
mhm,
And I really did, I mean, I did sort of bury it and like, okay, weird, weird. Why would I have picked up bad usage? Why would I have sabotaged myself? Okay, well, anyway, moving on. I'm in the process of learning how to be grown up. And only, once I became a dialect coach and started working with actors in Hollywood on the minutia of vowels and consonants, but then ultimately always, always these bigger questions of how we move through the world, not just with our bodies, but with our voices, and we get perceived a certain way and we adjust lightly because why not? And then we adjust again and then we adjust again. And uh-oh, have we negotiated away parts of ourselves that we actually care about? What's that? What's that?
mhm,
Only through that process and then having this incredible, real clarifying moment in the summer of 2018 when I was coaching Gal Gadot on Wonder Woman 2 in Washington, D.C. for the summer. And I got pulled into coaching women who are running for office for the first time, pro bono, just thrown in. Like,
mhm,
what a gift to be of use in that moment. It really hit me that this is a conversation about power
mhm, mhm,
and that what I had been dealing with 20 years before was also, through a different lens, a girl in her early 20s trying to sound powerful, aka get taken seriously.
mhm,
And, I don't have to tell you, I don't have to tell any of you listening that if you were to Google, how should I get more taken seriously? How do I sound more authoritative?
mhm,
One of the first things Google will spit out at you is lower the pitch of your voice. And that is how I had gotten vocal nodules.
mhm,
And I had to unpack that because I didn't know. All I knew is that the speech pathologist had said,
mhm,
your optimum pitch is actually a little higher. And I was like,
mhm,
oh, what's an optimum pitch? How does that work? How would I raise it without feeling ditzy?
mhm.
Inner story.
There is so much in here. I just want to sort of freeze frame a couple of pieces that you said that really stand out to me. One is even the acknowledgement, starting with our origin stories, that for everyone, we don't know we are living through our origin story until often years, decades later, as we grow, as we discover the strengths that emerge through going through a hard thing that gets us to being in the positions of perhaps guidance or authority or some level of knowledgeability about a craft, a topic, a subject, but it's often through our own challenges that we emerge, that we become a integrated way shower for others. So just even you naming, I loved how you said that because you're right. When we are in the middle of the origin story, we don't know anything. We're usually lost, and there's some crisis or some breakdown, and it's the resolving it, the learning through it, the unpacking it, that then the strength, the triumph emerges. So just one, I really love that. I really love that. And but there's so much in here. I mean, there's so much in here. And as I'm hearing you talk, there's the functional piece of the voice being a delivery device for power. And I'm also thinking of, because I work a lot within concepts of power, whether it's female leaders or female philanthropists that have extraordinary financial power. Money is power, voice is power. There are all of these vehicles for power on this planet. And as we know with money, money is a vehicle. It magnifies whatever is in front of us, however we're using our power. It's a money solves money problems, but it doesn't solve power problems. And our voice is a vehicle for our personal power. And for him in that moment, in such a normal, everyday comment that to me is steeped in misogyny. What is misogyny? Hatred of the feminine, hatred of women, that was designed to have you put it on you, like that there was something wrong with you and how you were using your body, i.e., using your power. Like that felt like such a compelling moment in what you're sharing here. And then also this piece of your process of unpacking what are the rules? What have I bought into, even in my voice tone, that I bought into, particularly as a woman, that I
And that
thought
worked,
would
and
give
it
me
worked
power. Yeah, that
until
and that work. Yeah. So carrying this thread about how our voice really is this incredible um, vehicle or gateway to our power. I'm so curious because for women, I mean myself included, I'm sure you've seen this. We were taught that our power comes from being pleasing or likable instead of speaking with honesty, with clarity, no matter what our pitch, our vocal pitch is. And what do you see that the subconscious rules are about how women should speak that you love helping women break? Or they might not even be subconscious. Like you were talking about the Google search, literally there are directives. But what do you find the more subconscious rules are that women are needing to break about how we speak?
Well, first of all, I think that it's really important to just name that one of the aspects of my own origin story that has turned out to be an important part of my coaching is that as any of us explore our own habits that we've picked up, it's crucial that we do so with compassion. This is straight out of social linguistics. One of the gifts of those academic folks is that they will tell you, any one of them will tell you that every single vocal habit any of us have picked up, we have picked up for a reason. It has served us in some way. And so that is like a shame eliminator. And I think that I found without meaning to that, my book is called Permission to Speak. And if you look at the cover here, that it's the word permission is like 6 times on the cover of the book. And I think that the embodied feeling of permission, freedom, self-trust, flow
Mm,
is the literal opposite of the feeling that shame offers
mm,
the body.
mm,
So when we notice the ways that our habits have perhaps served us in the past and are not serving us now, I just really want to love on that inflection point. I want to love on that history that has led you to this moment.
mm,
So listen, that's why I stepped in and said, it worked until it didn't,
mhm,
right? Pitching my voice a little bit lower, not crazy. I mean, we're not even in Elizabeth Holmes category here. Just enough that once I was in acting school and talking perhaps a bit more than usual and singing a bit more and just, literally using it more, my habit that hadn't become a problem did. And so in
mm,
those years before that, we can imagine I was as, I don't know, smiley and bubbly as perhaps I seem now, but in my late teens, early 20s. And I got into Princeton. And so I had this like cultural experience as a Bay Area hippie kid in that environment all of a sudden. And I can imagine that I was finding all kinds of unconscious ways to get taken seriously and not run the risk of being seen as, let's say, ditzy.
mhm,
So a habit that I picked up that served me until it didn't. And so as ask this question around our subconscious habits that we've picked up, often, as I am, underlining here, it's about a new era that we are moving into.
mm.
And
Flip.
as I like to call it, eyeing power in a new way. And I don't just mean more of it, although nothing against that, but I mean the eyeing power in a new way, meaning I want more of it and I want it my way. I want it on my own terms and I want to be inside of the defining of what power means, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like in my body.
Mhm, mhm,
Right. So all of the stuff that you're talking about with the feminine and the masculine is also about what are the cultural stories we've been told. If you want to sound powerful, you must. If you want to seem powerful, you must. And if we were to answer these questions, without a lot of thought, most of us would answer it in ways that suggest a style of power none of us actually want to mistakenly be seen as,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
with
Yes.
all kinds of masculine coded qualities that a lot of the wonderful men in our life also would not want to be seen as.
Mm,
So,
mm.
so here's where we are, where we get to
Yeah.
iPower a new way. And part of it is to say, well, what kind of leaders, even if I define that very broadly, just people who show up in the world publicly, perhaps in ways that make me want to lean in, that light me up.
Mhm,
Those folks.
Mhm.
Those folks, the cultural heroes, the thought leaders, the, people moving the world forward and doing good. How do they actually sound?
Mhm.
What are they doing that makes my body lean in and light up?
Mhm.
And we begin to notice all kinds of other ways of showing up, all kinds of sounds of power. And now I'm being really, really literal. There's perhaps a higher pitched voice.
Mhm.
There's perhaps um, gravitas mixed with silliness.
Mhm.
There's softness, there's perkiness, there's sweariness, there's an informality that feels really modern and conversational, right?
Mhm.
Not all the time and not everyone. The idea is that there's quite a diversity
Mhm.
that if you were to Google, how do I sound authoritative? It would not capture. And here we are in the process of capturing it and then naming it and sharing those words, those new words with each other so that we
Mhm.
can actually hear better what we're hearing.
Mhm. With what you were just saying about authoritative, it makes me think when I work with women that are founders or leaders or heads of organizations or companies or foundations, we work a lot with the distinction of how authoritative leadership, which is what we've been steeped in, is changing, and what's emerging is authentic leadership. So I'm just thinking, I'm feeling into and taking in what you're saying and how this maps, because a more authentic form of leadership is being true to how we are, high pitched, low pitched, whatever the sound is that comes out. But I want to go back and just for women listening, and also, if there's men listening too, look, there's no bias here. I just happen to have a more female audience. But whoever's listening here, just think about, like, Samara, what I heard you saying is there is a way that you noticed that you had been thinking that your power would come from lowering your voice tone to a pitch that was not authentic for you, resulting in this vocal incapacity for a bit. And so, to anyone listening, think about what are ways in your life that you've noticed whether you've changed your vocal range or pitch, or perhaps you've even adjusted your words, the choice of words that wanted to come out, or how you said them. Did you say them clearly and directly? Did you give tons of words that kind of watered down your core message? Like, just think about what has it been like for you? I was reminded of a time. I think I was in my late 20s and I had just come back to the States after having living internationally for years. And I remember I was having to go to an auto mechanic for something. And I've always looked younger than I am. And I've also had a persona in public that was very playful and joyful and cheery, and that often did not get taken seriously or respected, and was violated a lot because of this. There was this very naive part of me that would think everyone was my friend. And I remember going into this mechanic's office and having kind of a playful upper pitched rapport. And I
Mm-hmm.
could tell that he was messing with me. He was messing with whatever was happening with my car. I could just feel intuitively that something wasn't right. So there was the issue. He diagnosed it. He gave me a price. I called back the next day, 2 days later, and I altered my voice tone.
Mm-hmm.
And I intentionally spoke in very direct, very, what's the problem? How are you going to fix it? Like, ways that were not normal for me. I got a different response and a different price. And
Yeah.
what did that teach me? That I could not trust my playful heart, which, I mean, there are ways where that's appropriate in terms of having boundaries, in terms of how we navigate in professional transactions, especially for young women. But what I learned is that I had to take emotion, kindness out of it, and speak like what I thought was an authoritative man, absence of feeling, to be taken seriously. And I found that throughout my adult life, I'm almost 50 now, that's a habit that I've had to undo in ways where I can just bring more of my own natural prosody in, but it's really the energy from which I'm coming that affects so much of it. Because at that time, I didn't feel powerful. I thought it was all in how I spoke, and I could feel that he was disrespecting me and taking
Yeah.
advantage of
Yeah.
me.
Well, and also, inside of my consulting and my advising, so much of the work really is like, who's the audience and what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Mm,
Because if we're talking practically, you figured out a practical solution. Is it a long-term solution if we want to be part of changing the story?
mm,
No.
Yes.
Is it a short-term fix because we are pragmatists and we sometimes need to get the thing rather than get the feeling? The thing in
Yes.
this case was the cheaper deal rather than the feeling, which was to be in integrity with yourself. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
And
part of the no shame is to know
yeah.
that, like, actually, in order to amass power, we sometimes have to make concessions. And wouldn't it be lovely if we did so strategically, lovingly to the long-term goals and without self-recrimination and
Mm,
for each other as well?
mm,
Oh, my love, you did that thing to get that thing in that room and it worked. That
yeah.
was not the room that the revolution is going to happen, but you
Yes.
know, the next one. What about the next one? What about the next one? What about, right? Like this is the work. We can't
Yes. Yes.
you were not going to change the story
Right.
of what power sounds like with that car mechanic. Bless. Maybe. But it didn't happen
So
that way. You
doubtful.
sensed with your fabulous intuition that that was not the room that the revolution was going to happen in. And so you use the tools at your disposal, which in this case is the ridiculous amount of vocal variety each of us has, which suggests it is an evolutionary skill of humans.
Mm,
Talk about this a lot in the book because animals do not have this.
yeah.
Animals are missing, or
Yes.
rather, we magically have a
Yes.
piece in our brain that can intentionally change the pitch of our voice.
Mm,
Animals can change the pitch of their voice, but not on purpose.
incredible. Incredible.
And as I figured that out, as I learned that, I was like, my first thought, I have to admit, can we swear on this?
Yeah. Works for me.
I was gonna say, I remember my first thought was, what evolutionary fuckery is this? For everybody who has ever been told their voice doesn't sound like, why do we have the ability to switch up our voice? And I felt the pain of the millennia of women who have been boxed
Mm,
because they don't sound like men. And then the other side of it, which is, of course, well, if we have this amount of vocal variety and it's baked into the human condition,
mm,
well, let's celebrate that and let's find what that is and let's connect that to the story of power that we're also trying to change.
gorgeous. And walk us through. I so deeply resonate with the dimensionality from of which you are speaking here. Everything ranging from how crucial self-compassion is in this evolutionary journey as we are all reclaiming our power. And I think a lot about the split in the Western feminine psyche, which has caused us to adapt based on the patriarchal cues that we have been receiving for thousands of years. And that has what has emerged is this adaptive voice. It's the part of us that's learned how to play the game. And then also each of us are endowed innate with this authentic voice that speaks from the truth of our souls as these incredible intelligent beings that are made of something that is just extraordinary, brilliant, ineffable. And so we're all walking around with these two voices, our adaptive voice, our authentic voice. And every day is a dance between how we've learned to adapt, and that's where we offer compassion. And the place from which we offer compassion is that authentic voice. So it's
Mm,
really this inextricable
mm,
relationship inside of us. So
mm,
walk us through, give us like an example or a tool or an idea. I'm sure you see this a lot of bridging not only how we're using this tool called our voice, but also what's happening inside in terms of the quality of energy, power, emotion that is coming through this vehicle called our voice. Like
mm.
what is something that we might not know that would help us connect us more deeply to our power?
Well, here's something. First of all, though, let me just say that I love your understanding of the authentic and adaptive.
Mhm.
And I want to messy it a little bit with
Ooh,
my
mess it
own,
up.
which is like, I feel a third way in there that I
Mm,
really just want to, I'm lovingly complicating the narrative. So
mess
sorry. So
it
sorry for
up.
all of you
Mess it
listening. But I know you're into it. I know you're into it. I just want to admit that I'm about to say something a little messier, but authenticity, right, which is this term that all of us know is so overused, it begins to lose meaning, but we continue to use it, but because we want to have some language to name that feeling of truth.
Yes, yes.
if we talk differently to a little kid than we do to a grandmother, than we do to our friend who's going through it, than we do to our friend, that same friend who's having the best day of their life,
Mm,
it does us no good to think one of those is authentic and the other is not.
mm, mm,
If we get a call from a lawyer who's threatening us and
mm,
a different voice comes out that is perhaps lower and more quote unquote professional, a term laced with all kinds of assumptions in white patriarchal society.
mm,
If we do that, are we now inauthentic, or are we exactly stepping up in the way that we need to deal with that moment? So I also just want to love on the fact
mm,
that as we adjust, some of those adjustments take us away from our center.
mm,
Some of those adjustments are belong to an earlier era of ourselves when the only power we could have is proximal power.
mm,
Nicer I
mm,
am, the more that guy might give me some runoff power, right?
mm,
And those were the calculations we were making.
mhm,
But some adjustments are just adjustments because we do have this vocal variety that seems unique to our species. And
mm,
if we talk differently to a 3-year-old than we do to an 8-year-old, aren't we also just incredibly adaptive creatures who read rooms accurately?
mm, mm,
I'm about to go in and talk to a bunch of high school students. And
mhm,
I currently am teaching a bunch of college students at USC. That's a slightly like I can't wait to see which version of me shows up. But I'm going to know her. She's me.
mhm, mhm,
So this
mm.
offers an opportunity for us to find authenticity in a lot of the facets of us.
And what I really appreciate about what you're speaking to is that we each have our own personal definition of what is authentic and what is adaptive and our own relationship with it.
And only we know. I mean,
And
some people can tell when we're super fake, but for the most part, only we know. And part of this work, a huge part of this work, and the reason that the word permission is so important to me is that this is not me. The book, the work, this is not me saying, here's how to do it better.
mhm,
This is you, each of
mhm,
us, going, what do I want to claim?
mhm.
What's mine? What wasn't? What never was?
And what I love about this, because one of the things that I see is how often one of the things that I have a lot of chomp around is really transforming the conversation about how we humans even heal and grow. Because I see how
Mm.
many of our Western psychological matrices are very masculine, mental dominant, and also a lot of the spiritual ideologies that many of us subscribe to also came from a very masculine model. And so, what I find a lot of us, our personal development work, our spiritual paths, have been shaped by this hierarchical idea that there are good parts and bad parts. Authentic is good, adaptive is bad. And so the very paradigm that has formed us has led us to believe that there are certain parts of us that are okay and that there are certain parts of us that we need to change or fix. And to me, I feel that that is part that has internalized patriarchy and that whole cycle because what does it do? It has us turn against ourselves and judge ourselves for being shaped by the very thing that has taught us to turn against ourselves. So I appreciate the nuance from which you are speaking because the very paradigm that pop culture views authentic in actually views it as a hierarchy, like it's a better thing to be, as if it's a performance and a position to get to, when really what we're talking about is the voice that emerges from an integrated brain state, the voice that emerges when we are in a ventral vagal place of regulation and well-being in our autonomic nervous system. And there's a very different part of us that can come alive when our brain is in a healing brain state, integrated, and our nervous system is regulated, which is very different from what Instagram would tell you that speaking your truth is or what being authentic is. So I'm so glad because authentic is not about being part of this masculine dominant power paradigm of the good or the bad.
Well, and right, and specifically in like really practical terms, I don't want, and I've had so many clients do this that I know it's real, it's really easy to fall into this trap. I don't want any of us going, oh God, I sounded a little tiny bit not like myself just then. Oh God, am I ever
Right,
going to get this
because
right?
right there we are enacting the very system that we're trying to change, which is telling us that we're not okay. Boom, right there. So
Right.
give us a tool or a practice that you like to share, like with Gal Gadot when you were like trying, maybe it's not applicable to that, but
Well, I
what's
will
the
say that
tool?
was in the dialect land, right? So there was overlap, but the work that I do now is with people who are running for office, is
Mhm.
with people who are raising lots of money and have to go out and have that conversation, not just one-on-one, but at scale, who are stepping into their own leadership in terms of thought leadership. So not necessarily with title.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
is that the title part is its own thing. That is
Yes.
also real. But
Yes.
particularly when we are deciding that our own thoughts are worth spreading,
Mm.
and then we have to have sounds come out of our mouth that sound like we believe that the whole way through.
Even if we want to throw up, or
Even
even
when
if we
we,
want to
right?
pass out.
So what I'm really interested in all of those cases is, first of all, how do we warm up? How do we create the conditions?
Mm. How
Mission.
do we do that? How do we do that?
I'm going to circle back and give you all
Okay,
a
okay,
practical, practical. But the other thing, because it keeps coming up in your question, and I haven't gotten to say it yet because we keep going off on the most perfect tangents, to be clear, the
okay.
most perfect. But an idea that I found when I was writing this book and really processing all of my coaching sessions and what some through lines were that I want to name because it also has a whole lot of pathology, cultural pathology that surrounds it, is emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that every powerful act of public speaking, and let's define this really broadly, pitching somebody an idea in a pretty private space,
Mm-hmm.
up to a TED Talk or speaking on the largest stage that you will have ever spoken on. The speeches, the moments that work the best have an emotional component to them. And yet the cultural story is when I show emotion, and I don't just mean tears, although that's the obvious one, I've lost credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And we can point to examples, of course, where people are pilloried for showing tears or showing anger or showing, right? But part of that is the story in process, being pushed back on us, pushing back. And so we have to, you don't have to do anything. But if you would like to be part of the change, then
Mm-hmm.
you get to reclaim the emotional content of what you're saying and know in the deepest part of you that when you are emotionally open enough that we see how much you care about what you care about, that is when the impact happens. That is when the care spreads. That's when your words become movements.
Mm-hmm.
And so often when we're preparing even for what to talk about, we'll say something like, well, I don't want to tell that story. It might make me cry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that the tears alone are the power, but I am saying that you showing up in your wholeness and being willing to show how much you care in a world that has taught us over and over and over again that that is dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
is the risk that we must be willing to take if we want to make the impact we want to make in the world.
Incredible. Just let that land. And say that again.
Care out loud.
Yeah. Care out loud.
And for all of us who have, on one end of the spectrum, been shown over and over that that is risky,
Mm-hmm.
um, that you might be penalized,
Mm-hmm.
just honor the ways in which we talk about what we care about, but pretend that we don't care about it. In
Mm-hmm.
our voice, it often sounds like this is my idea. It's just a thing that I was like putting together. Right? When you go into your throat, bless, it's a
Mm-hmm.
great tool. When you go into your throat and you have no pitch range,
Mm-hmm.
you have no vulnerability. People cannot tell how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
What a
Mm-hmm.
great, obviously, what a great risk management tool all of us have picked up. It's a
Mm-hmm.
tool. On the other end of the spectrum, if that's the care a lot but hide it, on the other end of the spectrum is care not that much, but act like we care a lot, which is customer service voice, people pleasing. Anyone who has ever, ever, ever required tips in order to pay your rent, which sounds like, oh my God, of course. And so just like what a gorgeous spectrum of caring, of vocally caring, not just caring on the inside, but what happens on the outside in order with the voice in order to sort of show.
Mm-hmm.
If on the one hand we can hide that we care, and on the other hand we
Mm-hmm.
can sort of push,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then what is that sweet spot in the middle? Where we talk about the things that really matter to us, and then we breathe enough to be like, and you can tell
Mm-hmm.
it matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
I get all kinds of stuff. when
Mhm.
I talk about this. And I'm deciding and I'm redeciding and redeciding that that's exactly right. Thanks.
Mhm. Mm. Care out loud. That I, when we first met, that was one of the things that you said to me. And I, to me, that is, those are the rooms that the revolution is taking place in, whether it's with our husbands or wives, our kids, or negotiating pay raise, or firing someone that has broken contracts. Whatever the caring out loud is, this is the change. And I also think about and am aware of for how many of us it has not been and is not safe to care out loud. So, what do you say to the woman that might be listening, either because her body doesn't feel safe to care out loud, she's not in an environment that supports her caring out loud, or she hasn't developed the internal safety to know that it may be scary, but she'll be okay and she can care out loud? What would you offer to her? Is there a
Well, first of all, that's real. I mean,
so
I
real?
think actually
So real.
the entire
Mhm.
conversation around permission versus shame is also a conversation about safety.
Absolutely.
And that what I have created in my workshops, in private coaching, and I think in the experience of reading the book or having it be read to by me, which is your audiobook experience waiting to happen, uh,
Love it. I love it.
is that you are practicing what it would feel like to feel safe enough to practice.
Mm, mm, mm,
And that I recently came up with this term. I'm like, maybe this is the next book, but I think it's actually inside of this book. But I really just want to highlight it and underline it because it's a new term that I made up, but that really honors what you just suggested,
mm,
microdosing permission.
mm, mhm, mhm,
It's just not a big thing that happens that one time.
mhm, mhm. So give us
It's
an example.
ongoing practice of how we talk to ourselves, how we create allyship circles, how we find rooms, literal rooms, metaphorical rooms like Zoom spaces, communities, to gently practice showing up, discover what happens when we get feedback, good or bad, and how survivable it is
Mm,
or isn't. And that, I feel extreme responsibility
mm,
to uh, send back the question of safety to anybody who's asking it
mhm,
of you or of me, right?
mhm.
You
Yes.
are in the room. I am not. You know the
Mhm,
um, tension in that room. I do not.
mhm.
And what I do have is a few little gentle bravery nudges.
Yes.
Because sometimes we are misreading the room based on history. And that
Yes.
room is actually ripe for a revolution. And we're bringing in our old stories. And that's the part where, of course, I want to come in and be like, maybe a little mischief is actually what's needed here.
So, okay, I want to break that down because what you're talking about, the lens that I run it through, is really activating the neuroplasticity networks in the brain. We might be calling it microdosing permission, but what I'm hearing you say is using the discernment that comes from the prefrontal cortex to assess, am I safe here? Like legitimately, is my voice welcome here? And when we find the safe allies, and this is why people work with people like me and yourself, or we have trusted advisors where we get to practice. So part of the microdosing is actually the rewiring a sense of pairing safety in our body with safety in our expression. So looking at your life, whether the truth that has to be spoken is within a failing marriage that you want to say something about, or whether it's within a workplace where you are being mistreated or spoken down to or underpaid, whether it is within peers that you seem to be the butt of their jokes, whether it's through by your children who somehow have this idea that they can walk all over you or disrespect you, whether you are in a public position and you have to do media and or town hall meetings where you receive pushback in very negative ways from people. We need to know, so no matter what the areas are that perhaps that courage to have permission to speak and safety to speak, we have to find the safe places behind closed doors. This is the work where we
And
not only
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I want to hear the end of that thought.
So,
Yes.
so because what does this do? So, like, just to kind of break this down so it's less nebulous, what does this do? This helps our brains co-organize with the other brain of safety in the room. I role play things like this with my clients all the time if they're on big podiums. I'm sure you do, because it gives them a reference point in their basal ganglia and their limbic system in their brain that they can have a voice and they're not going to get in trouble. So we role play it. We have corrective experiences. We look at where in the past were we harmed from having a voice, and we look at what the reparative healing experience is. This is the thing we do behind closed doors with safe people. So there's all of this training behind closed doors. And also there's this piece about helping our nervous system move through threat responses of sympathetic fight or flight, speaking really fast or da 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 da, being kind of unintelligible with our words. That's my go-to when I get nervous. I rev up and speak quickly, or we shut down, we go into a dorsal freeze response, and we space out, we can't find our words. So this is what we do in the work behind closed doors. We practice so our nervous system can regulate, our brain, our upstairs brain and downstairs brain can be integrated and stay online. We have the safe presence of other who is welcoming us and receiving us. And that is the work that
Yes.
goes into, that is the
Yeah.
microdosing that goes into giving us the ability
Absolutely.
to say the thing that needs to be said in the room where it needs to be said. So powerful. I
Because
love,
we all need the evidence. We all need it. We all need it, and we
yes,
deserve it. And that's
yeah,
part of the process, right?
gorgeous,
And I also wanted,
gorgeous.
I love all
Yeah,
of that. And I
yeah,
also
add.
wanted to say there's another angle on this for any of you who even wants to, try this today. Uh when I earlier in the semester, I'm teaching this course at USC based on my book, so I get to just totally build it myself. Which with these fabulous, 20-year-old to 26-year-olds.
Amazing.
And which, by the way, age range of where I was when I lost my
Mm,
voice. So
mm, mm,
beautiful, beautiful, like heart to heart connection with these
mhm,
kids, quote unquote. Um, I had them do an exercise early on where they had to list for themselves as a homework assignment a whole bunch of things that they are weirdly obsessed with.
mm,
However they define that. It can be tiny, it can be big, a TV
mm,
show, an item of clothing, a concept, a town,
mhm.
whatever. Weirdly obsessed with something that they think is weird, how much they're into.
Like cats? Is that weird? No, that's normal.
Fabulous, fabulous example though, because you feel weird about it. Clearly from the way you just, in
Really,
fact,
I don't.
I
I'm
think
like cats. Like
one of my favorite, moments was when so I had everybody go up in class one by one. This was their first real public speaking, but deliberately messy, no pre-planned anything, no beginning, middle, and end structure. You get 0 grade for. Just spend like 2 minutes up there feeling your body
mm,
as you claim in semi-public something about you that you think is a bit weird.
oh, love that.
And here's why I bring this up here.
Mm,
Because afterwards, after each one of them went, I went up there on the stage with them to kind of, share the focus a bit, give them a little break. And first of all, had them babble a little bit about how their body was feeling, what their brain was saying, just to
mhm,
normalize and to start
mhm,
getting some vocabulary there. And then I had a little spectrum, different spectrum than the one I suggested earlier, just from 1 to 10. And if 10 is that felt like the hottest, most dangerous thing I could possibly talk about,
mm,
and one is meh, where did your topic land?
mm,
And by the way, no shame. We were early in the semester. I made it very clear no one has to be if I had to do this assignment in front of my peers at age 20, I wasn't going to pick a number 10. But what
mm,
did you pick? And everybody was sort of like, right. Of course, it didn't exist predetermined with a number. So they had to sort
mm,
of think about it. And the person who said senior cats,
mhm,
she's like, everybody loves kittens. I have a weird thing. I own two senior cats. They're kind of blobby. They can't move very much these days, but they're mine. And I said, okay, where was that on the spectrum? I feel like it's in the 1 through 5 range. Where then she's like, oh, that was like a 0 or 1. No one's going to disagree with me.
mhm, mm,
And I was like, this is such a good exercise. The whole thing, but like
mm,
specifically that heat scale.
mm,
Because we can also practice with those ones, twos, threes, fours
mm.
and
Yeah.
feel what it feels like in seemingly unsafe places
Mhm,
to just say, I've actually been switching it up and not eating chicken.
Hmm.
or whatever. I don't know, you
Yeah.
know? And being
Yeah.
like, okay, my body just had some feelings because I said something real, but not like so real, you know?
Yes. Yes.
I'll never forget the woman who said, cardigans. I feel really strong about cardigans because, I seem kind of tough. And I'm from Atlanta and I wear a lot of, big hoops. I wear a lot of tough clothes, but a good cardigan just really always makes me feel comfy. And like, I think maybe more people should wear cardigans in life. I was like, I'm sorry, are you turning this into a a social commentary on soft and hard? Because I am here for it. Anyway, my point is this is such a lovely reminder that we do not have to jump into the deep end.
Yes, yes. So for people that are listening here, think about what's one area of your life that's like, you're not in the hot seat, not a level 10, but like on this 1 to 10 scale, maybe a 4, maybe a 3, 4, or 5, where there's a little bit of, it's a one, what's a one chili on a 5 chili, Thai menu that turns it up a little bit, where you could bring a little bit more of your truth forward and in somebody that you feel is safe enough that could potentially receive it as an exercise to demonstrate to yourself, I can feel uncomfortable. And maybe it's simply you go out to a restaurant, you order something, you don't like what you got, they overcooked it, and you say, "Excuse me, I'm not happy with this. Could I send it back?" Maybe it's just speaking up just enough in a place where you would normally shut it down. Maybe it's saying to your grown children that keep coming to you for money to say something along, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about this. I'll bail you out right now, but we're going to need to talk about it later or something like that. Look for that might be more double caliente, but look for something in your life where you can just speak a little bit more truth in a relatively safe space to microdose and to surf that edge so that way we can expand our windows of tolerance here. That is such a great example.
Expand our windows of
Such
tolerance.
a great example.
Exactly,
I love
exactly.
that.
And then listen, let me offer a little bit of a warm up because I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'm actually playing with the idea of coming up with better language because I feel like warm up people start to think instantly.
La, 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 la.
Either, right, either I have to be an opera singer slash actor, um, and it's too silly,
Mhm.
or I just don't have time for that kind of a thing. Like, who has time for that? I need to go out on, that. Um, so here's what it really is. Obviously, inside of the term warm up is the idea of warmth. So here we are back again with the metaphor of heat.
Mhm.
Many of us are walking around our mundane life a bit cold.
Mhm.
Like if I were to have to go from I just woke up to being on this podcast,
Mhm.
inevitably I would need my coffee first. I would do a little yoga. I would think about Gabriella and how amazing you are, right? I would remember why I love talking about this stuff, which by the way does not require a whole lot of reminding myself, but it does require just the teensiest bit of intentionality. So what did I just describe, right? Like
Mhm.
there's a little bit of getting your body online, there's a little of getting your voice online, a little bit of getting your why online.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so maybe a 2-minute warm up, rather than thinking of it as a warm up that's like la 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 silly,
Mhm.
think of it as what is the lightest lift, biggest impact I can do to create the conditions for permission inside myself so that I invite myself out when the
Mhm.
time is right, before I press go, before I walk on stage, before I have that tough conversation with a friend.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
four pieces. One, optional, but I like to throw this in because I think it's a sort of a tie-in to all the other stuff that we were talking about, which can feel big and abstract. But one story, just notice any story going through your head that is meaner to yourself than you would be to a friend.
Mhm.
Uh, I hope they don't notice that I'm actually bad at this.
Mhm.
The classic one before people go out on stage, right? I hope they don't ask me this. That's the one thing I didn't practice. That kind of setup, if you were hooked up to an MRI scan, would show quite
Mhm.
a cocktail of unhappy chemicals.
Mhm.
Worst case scenario. I hope this worst case scenario doesn't happen. Don't
Mhm.
think about a worst case scenario. So notice if there's a story going through your head.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
always bad at, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and lovingly
Mhm.
offer yourself a more intentional, even if it doesn't happen more easily, a more intentional thought. I'm here for bigger things. I'm on to something else. Thank you
Mhm.
for trying to protect me. Thank you,
Mhm.
thank you, thank you, fear. Thank you. Thank you. Very
Mhm.
kind.
Mhm. So
So
meet the voice with compassion and
meet
care.
the voice with compassion. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Look at you.
yes,
Look at you trying to protect me from
yes,
myself.
yes,
I'm on to something else.
yes, yes.
Any version of that, please pick your own language, right? So,
Gorgeous.
but so just notice the story in your head and, lovingly guide yourself towards something else. 2 and 3, more obvious, do not skip.
Mm,
2 is body.
mm,
Fill in to this whatever feels good in your actual body. If you're a run around the block person or a walk in nature and you can schedule that in before you have big, tough conversations, please
mm,
do. If you are an efficient person who just wants 30 seconds of a sun salutation, do
mm.
that. If you want to turn on Alicia Keys and jump around and get into your hips and remember the last time you were on a dance floor, which was probably too long ago, do that. But do something physical and extra points if your spine twists.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like you got to get the parts of us that are stuck because of the world we live in and the safety we have been pulling in to loosen up a bit. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So that's 2 and connected is 3
mm,
breath. This is gonna happen anyway. So I am not a huge proponent of like breathe this way. I'm a
mm,
huge proponent of get your body going and it will remind you how to breathe
mm, mm, mm,
and from lower and from
mm,
lower. And then connected to that part of number 3 is breath plus voice. So just
mm,
just normalizing that a little bit of that stuff is the kind of thing that not just singers, not just professional performers do, but anybody who honors that the mouth and the muscles connected to the mouth is just the conduit to
mm,
get the ideas from inside of you out.
mm,
And the final thing, number 4, if you have time for nothing else, little spine twist, and then this. Number 4, close your eyes if you're in a place where you can. Otherwise, just do the simplest kind of grounding you can possibly do if you're about to go on stage, whatever. Put your hand on your heart if that feels good, on any other part of your body that feels like it wants to be taken care of. And bring to mind, have a few of these ready in advance. Bring to mind a time that you felt really, really seen,
mm, mm,
that maybe someone you admire admired you back. You
mm,
got a hug or a text or an email or a heard through the grapevine that your contribution mattered.
mm, mm,
And breathe that memory in with your entire body.
mm,
And if that memory brings up something that is unpleasant, it used to be great, but now it feels a little grief-stricken, you have total permission to strike that one,
mm,
come up with another one. If nothing comes to mind right now, also please love on that. That's okay. No one has ever asked this of you before.
mm,
Begin to collect a few. Bring to memory that moment when you felt personal power. It's different
mm,
than power over, right? It's power to.
mm,
Psychologists call this priming for power. Of course, I call it priming for permission.
mhm,
But the memory spurs the reminder that you are already exactly who you need to be.
mm,
And then you go out there and they see it too.
mm.
I
Oh,
mean,
gorgeous. Samara, thank you so much. You are filled with so much light and heart and wisdom and are such a incredible voice at this time as we are in revolutionary times. The nature of power is changing on this planet, and I am just so grateful for your warmth and your wisdom and your joy. Oh my gosh, your joy. And as we wrap up here, is there anything else that is on your heart to share? And how can people find you?
yeah, listen, I have really simplified the ways that folks can work with me because I know it works. And
Mm,
I know we are in unprecedented times and we
mm,
need more leaders leadering a fresh way now. So two things, if you want to just contact me, definitely head over to LinkedIn with
Mm,
my name, Samara Bay. And two, if you are feeling ready for this work, my website has a new hidden link just for you, um, that really encapsulates my new favorite way of working with people.
mm,
It's my website is permissioninc.co, inc like INC, as in permission incorporated
mm,
into your body.
mm,
Permissioninc.co/week, WEEK, and get a week with me
mm,
and microdose that permission.
mm. Gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Microdose that permission. And so everyone, thank you for being here with us. And my hope sincerely is if this conversation, an exchange of life force energy, of ideas, of thoughts, if it stirred something in you, may it continue. Like, may it continue. May you continue listening as you are on this path of reclaiming your voice, not only your voice, but your power, not only for yourself, but also for the good of our beautiful world. Because just like my tagline says, when a woman finds her authentic voice, she finds her power and everything changes. And so I thank you for being with us today. Please subscribe and join me at Extraordinary Woman, because the future isn't waiting. It's actually listening for us to speak the future alive now. And if no one has told you today, and from our conversation, I feel that this is very resonant. You matter. Whatever has shaped you in the past is you are not beholding to. It is not your fault, whatever you have gone to and however you've adapted. And you are worthy and deserving of your own love and compassion, and all of the ways that you may have learned to silence yourself, hold back, adjust your vocal tone, whatever you've needed to do to survive is a brilliant response to very difficult circumstances that we all face. And there is something so wholly deep within you that has extraordinary capacity to rise. I believe in you. I know Samara believes in you. And so we just ask for a blessing of authentic expression to take place inside of you and around women and men all around this world that connects us to something greater for the highest good. So thank you for being here today.